Alright, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everything is running properly. For some reason, whenever I switch around with computers, things get messed up, but should be going good. Alright, I am an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRECIPIC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure. I'm out of some of my shorts. I'm out of Tesla. Got to my target. Went beyond my target. I am out of LAES that I was in. I'm out of KULR that I was in. Those were pretty successful. I added to the long side NBIS today and VKTX today. Whew, all right. Wow, another hectic one. The SPYs, not a huge percentage change. We had a pretty big gap up this morning, but the SPYs only finished down 0.2%. Yeah, pretty big intraday movements. First, only finished down 0.2%. If you're trying to be bullish on the market, though, that's what you want. You want these tighter realized vol days to bring back an underlying bid to the market. Qs, same deal, down real small, 0.16%, and the IWM up 0.1%. So closes within 0.5% up and 0.5% down. In some ways, are the most bullish thing you can get. In some ways, even more bullish than a big up move, because that keeps the realized volatility really big. But there was a lot of movement under the surface today. We had a decent-sized gap up this morning. We were trading much higher than that, if I remember correctly, at one point pre-market from when we actually opened. Where's our 930 here? Yeah, 930. Here's the gap up. We were trading like $3 even higher than where we opened at a certain point this morning. We gapped up. We filled the gap. We made new highs. We rolled down, made a lower high. This was brutal. This selling here was real brutal around 1230. Hit the market really hard before we drifted up a little bit into the close. The Qs are going to be very similar looking 5-minute chart. The IWM is also somewhat similar looking, though the IWM was relatively strong throughout the day today. With the TLT, TLT barely finished up, huh? Up 0.5%. So interest rates down a little bit. It helps, but not exactly a great move there. Popping over to the market at lows, I know the Qs had hit that extreme extension again. Looks like the SPYs did too. So both the SPYs and the IWM, this keeps kind of happening. We keep kind of trading down. I think we did this 2 trading sessions ago also. Trading down to like that $10 of extension and not getting any further follow through. Most of the time in a normal market environment, that's kind of where I would start to bid it in real small. Buy some small index positions there. Be willing to build it a little bit further, or at least look for signals to be able to get bigger. With this recent market movement, I keep waiting for like a day 3 and not getting it. I remember last time we hit extreme extension, it was just like 2 trading sessions ago. We kind of barely ticked that $10 extension on December 30th. That was a day 2, and I remember at lows, it's like, all right, we're just getting down into $10 extension from the ADM and the daily for the SPYs, the Qs. But I don't want to jump the gun and be too early if we're going into a feedback cycle of selling. So I'm not going to buy yet. I'm going to be a little bit patient. Let's see if we get a weak close and then a gap down. And we didn't get it. We got a gap up on Friday last week, which then sold down. But the gap up satisfied all the extension and took away that more, dare I call it a layup, kind of extension long on a day 3 gap down. And then today at lows, I had pretty much the exact same thought process. SPYs, Qs were getting to $11 worth of extension. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but I'm going to be a little bit patient here because the Qs in particular were just breaking down to a new low to start to solidify a pattern of lower highs and lower lows in the market. Not confirmed with the close, though. You want to close below this low. We didn't actually get that. But I'm like, all right, the market's just breaking down into a potential downtrend here. I don't want to be too early on this day 2. I'll wait and see if we can close weak today, gap down tomorrow, and then if we gap down tomorrow and we're $14 extended, then I'll almost definitely be becoming a buyer of the indexes. That was the play that we had back here on December 20th, which was a phenomenal play. day 1, big move lower. Day 2, continuation. Day 3, we got the gap down, and then that gap down was very, very viable on that day. So I keep looking for that pattern and not getting it. So we'll see how we gap tomorrow. If we gap down, we bounce back $5 intraday in the Qs. So even if we gap down, it might not be enough to get us back into extreme downside extension. If we gap up, then it'll make the trade actually really difficult at that point. So we'll see how that plays out. But the indexes here are barely kind of holding on. This December 20th low I keep talking about is being really important to get below, and not just get below, but actually close below. SPYs ticked below it by a little bit today, but obviously didn't close below. Qs ticked below it by a lot, but didn't close below by a little bit as well. So we will continue to monitor the market as we go into the new year. It's an interesting market dynamic situation right now. We kind of discussed that a little bit in the morning meeting, because at the end of last week, we find ourselves in a negative gamma environment with forced selling coming from the systematic funds that's expected to continue through this week. But this week and next week tend to be pretty bullish weeks. A lot of new money comes online into the market in the first 2 weeks of January every year. I think that it's typically the strongest amount of new money coming into the indexes and stocks in this 2-week period compared to any other 2-week period at any other point throughout the year. The second closest being the first 2 weeks of July, which we remember was very strong this year, because there's so much forced fund flows coming in when you have a strong year halfway through the year when you go into the first 2 weeks of July, and same deal at the end of the year when you then go into the first 2 weeks of January. And as we all know, even though December was a little bit weaker, we had a very strong calendar year for 2024. I forget the exact percentages, but I think it was S&P up 24% and Q's up 27%, something like that. Please correct me. I'm sure I'm slightly off on those numbers. So that's where we're at on the index level. Just a really interesting market environment. Today was pretty crazy underneath the surface. Off the open, it seemed like some stocks were ripping higher. Some stocks were almost like experiencing mini flash crashes. I assume that most of that is just quite simply related to just what we were just talking about. Beginning of the year repositioning for the big funds that are out there as they kind of get their new risk budget for the year. And you combine that with the fact that it is still a holiday week, so it's still a lower liquidity environment for probably today and tomorrow, as we finish up our Santa Claus period of time and go into the January effect period of time. So that's at the index level. As far as individual stocks go, review this VKTX again. Got some okay follow through on it. Looking for more. VKTX. I've been largely avoiding this stock. There's been so much hype around it throughout the 60s and 70s when everyone was looking at this thing, and then it really failed starting in mid-November through December. Some of the December selling almost seems like tax loss harvesting to me. Even though the stock is up on the year, I would assume that the average market participant is down money on it because they bought after the gap last February. So most people probably have prices in the 60s and 70s, and then it was breaking down into the 50s and 40s, became an opportunity for tax loss harvesting. So I got that in my head, combined with the fact that it's a technical gap fill from this huge gap last February down into like 38.50 or so. That already happened. And then you get a little bit of a higher low potential at the end of last week. So I want to see if that higher low can boost this stock through the ADMA on the daily, through this downtrend line to give a bigger bounce. Target one would really be $45, which is $45, $46. That's a gap fill. It's also about where the 21 EMA is. And then I think that there's potential for this thing to work its way back up to 50. So that's on my radar. I bought a position in this NBIS. I actually wanted to buy more, but when my internet dropped right after the open today, I kind of missed the opportunity to do so. Just a breakout in this NBIS. Somebody put it on my radar through this like $29 to $30 area. It's interesting, this NBIS, because it's also one of these like AI names, AI, maybe even quantum kind of related names. but hasn't gotten the same bid boost that most of the other ones have gotten. Yet, when you actually look at their business fundamentals, they seem to be much better and cheaper than the others. I mean, this is a company that actually makes money here and trades at a PE forward PE that's not actually absurd compared to some of the other ones. So someone kind of put that on my radar more fundamentally, and then had a technical breakout to that 29.30 today. So I put this as on my watch list today and bought some. I think a snap back to $40 in this thing is also pretty reasonable. So that is the two long names that I kind of focused on, and then obviously I'm just continuing to focus on these shorts. I'm really annoyed about my internet dropping this morning because QBTS actually got down to my target. I was planning on liquidating this below $8, and I just had no internet for a period of time this morning, and I could have called into the trade support team, but I got so many positions on, and by the time I was able to get back in, it was trading all the way back up at 850-ish. So not only did I not close the position, I actually reshorted at that point. When otherwise I probably would have been out of it and done with it. And then obviously these quantum names led by RGTI just went bonkers in the second half of the day. I don't get it. I don't get the consistent underlying strength in some of these names, to be honest. Most of the time when you get stocks that move like this, go from $1 to $11 in a vertical move, they then have not necessarily 100% retracements, but really big retracements, especially if the fundamentals don't justify the price movements, and I certainly don't think that they do, though obviously there's a lot of hype behind the potential of quantum computing. But anyway, QBTS actually creating a pivot here that holds its downtrend line, which also is my target. So I got to figure out exactly how I'm going to manage this thing. But my position in this one at least is a little bit on the smaller side. I do still have some of this IonQ. Same deal, held that 21 EMA. Some of these names got obliterated off the open. IonQ obliterated off the open. Palantir just got absolutely wrecked off the open through that $74.50, $75 support zone that we had been looking at. IonQ, my price target in this is probably a little bit greedy, looking for like $36. Got kind of close, $38.50-ish. That's a good looking pivot. So we'll see if these pivot lows for QBTS or an IonQ actually lead to new highs. The technicals would indicate that they're holding their trend and that they can. So obviously if you're involved in them, make sure that you're managing your risk. I am absolutely sticking with my shorts, though as we're now in the new year, I'm trying to be a little bit more conservative. So I was able to get all out of LAES on Friday. It was a good trade. I'm not getting back in it. I got all out of this QULR into the down move. It actually gave further follow through today. I'm not getting back into it. I got out of QUBT a while ago. I'm not getting back into it, even though this one has been a little bit weaker. QBTS, had I gotten out today, I probably would not be getting back into it. I'm just trying to be, like I said, a little bit more conservative as we're going into a new year here. Don't want to give back all my profits of 2024 and still owe taxes on it. But the IonQ I'm planning on sticking with a little bit. And this RGTI I'm sticking with a little bit too, because this one didn't even get down to the 80 EMA on the daily, let alone the fact that I'm looking for a deeper target. I don't know how I always I somewhat randomly choose these names because they all seem like BS to me. So I don't know how I always seem to choose. It was the same thing when QUBT was running, but eventually failed. The strongest one to be heaviest in, but somehow I managed to do that. So I kind of got my butt handed to me on this RGTI a little bit today. I actually day traded it very, very well. I made good money on it from a day trading perspective, but my swing is heavy enough that the stock was up, 30+% by the close that, the swing P&L kind of smoked me, even if the day trading P&L on it was pretty good. But I'm going to continue to stick with it as well. I'm up a lot overall in these quantum names, even as I take a little bit of a hit in this RGTI. So I'm going to stick with it. Got to recognize that this thing could work its way into the 20s pretty easily, though. Low to mid 20s is not out of the question. This technically is a day one today. This is just a day one today. It's a big, big day one. I wouldn't expect it to go up 30% every day, like Pat was saying, into the close. But it's a really big day one. It could easily give a day two. We saw a ton of large order bullish option flow that was coming into this stock creating a really big gamma squeeze that was causing it to continue. For me, it's still a stock that has made, in the first 3 quarters of this year, $8 million or so in revenue, and is trading at, according to Dennis here, a $5.6 billion market cap at a 200 million share float or whatever it is. So it's actually pretty mind-boggling to me that this is even able to hold up the way that it is. And I'm also surprised that we haven't seen, at least not yet, more cash being raised by some of these companies. This RGTI still has a pretty big cash burn. Based on my research, I was doing some of it today. The amount of cash and cash equivalents that they have on hand, and their cash burn that they currently have, they've got 2 years worth of runway. It's not nothing, but it's not a lot either for a company that probably could use an opportunity to raise some capital. So I'm surprised that they haven't. Won't be surprised if we do see a secondary hit on more of these names at some point, but we'll see. But technically, the momentum continues, the parabolic move continues, and today was just a day one after a 2-day reset. So it kind of covers those quantum names. Outside of that, I don't really have too much to talk about. Apple got absolutely smoked today, helped to add some weight onto the Qs. Apple was relatively weak pre-market. I didn't want to short this into the 21 EMA, even though it was relatively weak. It's just too strong of a stock, so I kind of avoided it. Tesla got smoked on its car numbers that got reported pre-market this morning. So this fulfilled my short. I was really just looking for a move to 400. Did pretty well with it. It was a good hold for me. And then if you can extend this thing, this is what I was saying this morning, if you can extend this thing into closer to 360, I would potentially look for an extension long. Like if we could get a gap down tomorrow, plus maybe some opening momentum to get you into the mid to low 360s, I probably would really be looking at taking this long off the potential 360 support that it originally broke out from. But one step at a time, we will see how we gap. How did XLE end up closing today? Yeah, XLE ended up tailing off the 21 EMA, but this was just another really good call. Just a really good call, I think, for money to rotate, really starting last week, out of some of the crazy high flyers like Tesla and Palantir, and into some of these more beaten up sectors, a little bit of utilities, a little bit of energy. The offshore drillers have been something I've been paying attention to that have traded pretty well the last few days. So for anybody that was long these energy stocks, it was a great day to book a little bit of profit into this, day 2, day 3 to the upside as the XLE got to the 21 EMA. So it was a pretty good trade there as well. I think that covers all I got. It is still a holiday week, so we probably got a skeleton crew listening, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. Not seeing any questions so far. Robert in the YouTube is wishing me and the team here a Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well, Robert. Anybody else have any questions? I don't mind doing a quick one. It's still kind of a holiday week. It was debatable on whether or not I was even going to do the afternoon meeting today and just pick up again next week or not. But, figured we could do a quick one. From Rex here. What do you think about Palantir not breaking the low in the market did after 12 p.m. today? I did note that relative strength also. And it closed above 75. It bounced off the 21 EMA on the daily. Do you think should have trimmed more into the close? So I think that you should follow the game plan that you have. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it is my go-to answer. I know you've been swinging short Palantir, so have I. So you should have a game plan in place for how you want to manage that position. It's not what I wanted to see. We had this great breakdown in the beginning of the day in Palantir through that really important support zone around $75 down through the 21 EMA, which is at 74.30. So it's really looking at like that 74.30 to 75 zone. The first 10 minutes got me pretty excited. And it's like, all right, I said down here at Lowe's, I was like, all right, they really should give this an oversold bounce. That oversold bounce overshot my expectations. QBTS is getting hit here after hours. I just covered some. the oversold bounce overshot my expectations, and then it just started showing relative strength, exactly like you're talking about. It really just started showing some relative strength. When these Qs broke lows here, I would have loved to have seen Palantir break those lows as well. What are you telling me here, Bill? They're doing an offering. Is that what this is? $125 million offering of warrants. Okay. Okay. Notable. And then it just, back to this Palantir, it just couldn't follow through and break those lows. And when it was trading down here at 74, I recognized that it was a little bit strong to the market. Not necessarily the end of the world, just because this opening sell was also weaker than the market. But I really wanted to close below 74 in Palantir today to give me some more confirmation that it's finally losing the uptrend, finally losing support in the 21 EMA on the daily, and we didn't get it. Actually, and in fact, we got a decent downside tail. So that might indicate that even for this short to work out further, obviously if the market crashes, it'll work, but it might indicate for this short to work out further, you might need a bigger bounce that creates a lower high in order for a lower low to come in. So we'll see if it plays out that way or not. From Lewis, I've been short via put options on a firm. Okay. What's your assessment of the current chart? The chart's broken. It's broken in the same way that the market's broken, starting with the negative Maribozu that came from the Fed day. The bounce back that created this lower high here was actually relatively weak to the market, so now it's both broken and relatively weak. And then you got a new low really on Friday, which also further confirms relative weakness compared to the market. As we already discussed with the SPYs and the Qs, SPYs and the Qs are kind of battling this December 20th low. A firm cleared it, closed below it on Friday. A little bit of a doji day today, maybe with some relative strength, but overall this chart doesn't look great to me, but neither does the market. So a lot of this stuff looks like it's set for lower pricing. A firm should not be able to get back above the December 26th high at this point, which is 67.35. So 67.35 would be the upside spot that I'd really be paying attention to. From John, what market conditions are better to trade larger size? When the market is volatile with a higher VIX, so price moves more both up and down, more risk reward to trade larger size, or when the VIX is lower with the market grinding up, it's safer to trade. Yeah, so generally the second thing, when you go into a bear market, or you have a higher VIX, or you just have bigger market moves generally, you can generally take less size. You're generally going to be forced to take less size and give more space risk, just because there's whatever trade that you're looking at, right? That's always got that entry, and you have a stop loss. That's how you measure your space risk. When the movements are bigger, then the spacing between that entry and where a stop loss is going to be, everything else held equal, will most likely, most of the time, be bigger. So, if in this stock, a normal trade in this stock is 25 cents worth of risk, maybe all of a sudden now in this more volatile environment, that same trade is 50 cents worth of risk. So then you're taking half the size, and it's the same dollar risk, the same dollar reward generally. So generally speaking, if you want your P&L swings to be roughly similar, then you're going to want to be taking less size with more space risk as volatility increases. With that said, some people may argue that when the VIX is higher, when the volatility increases, that there is more general opportunity, which means that it might be worth sizing up from the perspective of the dollar risk on how you're trading for more reward potential. I would say that probably very much depends on the trader's experience level and account size. But I know that I try to do a little bit of a combination. When the movements are bigger, I risk more generally because I feel like there's more opportunity, and I also will, at the same time, try to take a little bit less sizing, even as I'm risking more, if that makes sense. Thanks for the question, John. Yep, cool. From Mike H in the VTF, I went long AMD versus lows at 940. Okay. Kind of gap fill there. Fills the gap, creates a pivot low. You're going long. 30 cents risk, got your risk covered. Sounds good. The plan was to look for pivots for trailing. Yeah, you didn't get any pivots. It was just straight up and then straight down. The market failed. No real pivots came. Any thoughts on if that was appropriate way to look for a bigger move in my favor? I think that was very appropriate. The only thing I would say is that I would argue that the market really isn't fully on your side today, and therefore maybe you want to have a little bit more of a conservative game plan on a long. But as far as how you traded it, I got no qualms. I think you traded it just fine. Over in the YouTube, Mike in YouTube is asking me how I feel about Microsoft long. At lows today, that extended enough. I mean, I guess probably along with the Qs, where you really could have been looking for an extension buy. The problem with Microsoft, I've been avoiding Microsoft because I find that the chart's very sloppy right now. It's got a big price congestion zone with like support between 400 and 405. Resistance was up around this 440 area, broke out and then failed. So you're back in the midst of this big price congestion zone, even at lows today. So you could have looked for like an extension long because you had the Qs at extreme downside extension at the same time as Microsoft was pretty extremely oversold at lows today as well. You could have been looking for an extension long. But for me overall, as much as I love Microsoft, it's been one of my favorite stocks to trade of my entire career. I've been avoiding it in this price congestion area. It's just tricky. The long, if you took it, could certainly give you follow through. I think back to the mid 420s, just on a bit of an oversold bounce situation. But just keep in mind that this market still is not looking bullish to us. Can the market go higher and reverse higher and prove itself, and then Microsoft would probably go well beyond 425? Absolutely. I would just be a little bit cautious on being too greedy on price targets on longs right now until the market proves itself a little bit better. Thanks for the question, Mike. Happy New Year, Apex Joy. All right, looks like I got through the questions. So quicker meeting today as we wrap up our holiday couple of weeks here. Tomorrow is Friday, so there will be no afternoon meeting, and then we'll kind of resume our regularly scheduled fun next week. So have a great night, everybody. See you all tomorrow.